us what's going on. Tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you all for organizing. This is such a fun idea of having everybody just speed dating. And I took it literally, so I'm going to speed right through it.
Yeah.
As a professor, I was, and an anxious person, I got very organized. So
I love that.
Share.
I love that too.
Let's see.
Christine,
yeah, look at all those folders. I love this.
So I'm going to start my bio. I like to do a visual bio when I present work on Zoom. It's a little more fun. I'm from Colorado. Grew up, spent a lot of time in the mountains. This is my childhood bathroom. My mom was a decorator, a designer. And so you can see like there's an eccentric quality to my childhood. And then I went to Brown University for undergrad and I majored in art. And after you can see how gray it was coming from Colorado. And after sophomore year, I was really interested in earthwork artists. And I sent Charles Simmons, who was an earthwork artist, a fan letter. And he said he needed help on a piece at the Guggenheim.
Oh my God.
So I arrived in New York and I helped him lay these little bricks for about 6 months at the Guggenheim. And this was the final piece. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. But looking down, this was the moment that I decided to be an artist, like that I committed, like this is what I wanted. And I just like, of course, I thought it meant that like at 40, you have a retrospective at the Guggenheim. So that kind of, that hasn't happened yet. And I'm over 40.
Still to come, my friend. Okay.
Don't give up the hope. And then I traveled to India and Nepal to study Thangka painting. And I, wildly early 20s, took refuge in Buddhism and became a meditator and kind of just explored, traveled around alone that was before cell phones, my poor family. And then I moved to Los Angeles and went to graduate school in Los Angeles. You always think of LA as colorful, but it's actually quite gray. So right out of graduate school, I was included in a current abstraction show at Barnstall Art Park. And this was a piece called Commingling Without Ever Exchanging, about AIDS and about sex in the early 90s. And it was also about the LA freeways. And I wove all these tubing together and had this fountain with glitter water kind of going through. Again, kind of theatrical, about the body, kind of how do you bring a painting to life, like a kinetic sculpture painting. And this was a show I had at the old Tom Solomon space on Fairfax. And it was, I had all these pieces fabricated. It was called Water in a Straitjacket. And I had this sculpture that water slowly grew and then it would explode. There was a sphincter and it would explode into the bowl. So it was kind of mimicking different body organs. This was a random piece about cells, but it was based on a Philip Guston piece with 1,000 bags of water. And this was another piece upstairs called Grandma's Pregnant. It was a self-inseminating fountain. And again, this idea of paint and exploration and non-permanence, kind of interested in the earthwork, the idea of non-permanence and performative sculptures. And this was the piece I made those are my paintings as well, but this was a fly naked piece right when I was pregnant with my first child. And it was kind of inflating and deflating. So my path as an artist certainly has not been linear. I've done collaboration and sculpture. And this is the last piece I did before I kind of found weaving. This was at Yerba Buena, and it was The Way Things Go show. And it was, so you can kind of see the glitter going through the light.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to see the sculptures moving. They move and they breathe and they kind of pulse like an artificial body. And then in 2012, I was in, this is my weaving. No, this is a Miro. I was at the Miro Foundation, and you can see how large this is, the heads down here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so huge and so immersive. And I was with my family and with a friend of mine who since has passed away, a good friend, and he was a designer. And we both just sat there and we're like, we have to weave. We need yarn, big hairy something. And so I was determined. I went back and I as an adjunct, or I was an associate professor at CCA in sculpture. I took a class with legendary Leah Cook and Sasha Dor, who did natural dyes, and it kind of changed my life. And they gave me a loom, and this is my final piece in the class. And
wow.
So I think they didn't know what to do with me because anyway, it was just a little hairy. And but anyway, so I got really interested in weaving, and I really found that the loom was very straightforward, and it was kind of old technology and ageless, and it was timeless, and I really love that. And I used the loom as a means to invent something unfamiliar, and I really loved to push the loom. The loom became kind of a way. This is my studio about a year after returning.
Amazing.
And I just started making these pieces, and then Larry Rinder came to my studio, and he bought one for the Berkeley Art Museum, and then he called me. These are some of the pieces. He called me about 2 months later, and he said, will you make a piece for the art wall? They just opened the new museum. I was the second person, and at first I was like, no way, I can't do that. I work on a little loom. And then my husband was like, my friend, people were like, just say yes. And I did, and I figured it out. And so I wanted to make a piece. There's you can see scale.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That space is so amazing.
It's so amazing. It was such an amazing opportunity. And I wanted to make a piece that was it was 2016. I wanted to make a piece that was as radioactive as the Times with the election. Little did we know that it was going to be radioactive. And I really wanted to look at national and global anxiety, and kind of how do you make an abstract piece that will make you feel kind of a call to action, or like anxious, and through abstraction. So I made this. With
these are so powerful.
Thank you. They were really. It was an amazing experience, and I just loved making them. It was really great. And then this was a show at Acme Gallery in LA before they closed. And I called this show The Smell of Gasoline, because this idea of some people actually love the smell of gasoline. There's a certain kind of person that likes it. I did some research. And so I really like this idea of things that were I started making these words that guided a lot of my work, like sickly sweet, or grateful dread, dirty dazzle. Like, how do you kind of capture that, kind of those polar experiences of those kind of mixed emotions? The work has a lot to do with kind of the world around me. And so this is, I'll let you be in my dream if you let me be in yours.
Great title.
Yeah, it's from a song, and a Dylan song. And this one, I started weaving words into it, and I was really kind of looking at people like Sister Coretta Kent, and this idea of using text and abstraction and color, and to kind of talk about, she talked about war, but we were kind of, in a way, we've been at war in our country, not literally, but, and this idea of like, how do you talk about the stunningness of what's going on around us? And this is Wow.
Right.
Wrong Way, which was at the ICA.
Yeah.
So I started looking at cautionary tales like SOS, Wrong Way. And this idea of kind of raw, chunky, fringy pieces with holes. And this idea of color as kind of emotion, and as a potential to uplift or destroy or calm. It can energize, it makes you anxious, it can be like a drug, it can be calming, really depending who you are. And I love using color as kind of a tool. And I wanted to make them so much that people want to touch them and stroke them, and which is kind of what I wanted to do at the Miro Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I definitely touched some of them, I'll have to say.
I know. I'm like, Christine, you know, touching them. I just want to wait, Terri. I just want to jump in and just say something about having lived with them in person for so long. to me, what's so powerful about your practice is the way they inhabit the traditional space of abstract painting. I mean, you and I talked a little bit about the kind of incredible intentionality that actually exists in loom weaving, that it really is akin to like making a choice about a mark making on a surface. And they really feel like they inherit a space of large scale abstraction. They even have the language of the drip, so to speak, and the gravity and the brushwork, but they are deeply of textile, and those slashes that cut you through to the wall are so much about the figure and the ground and art history. And like with Maria and the vessel, we could go down an art history rabbit hole, but they just in person are so thick and textural and present. So
yeah, you really have to see them in
person. Thank you, Allie. Like these are paintings. I wanted to make paintings that weren't from paint, and everything I've done, the sculptures were paintings. Like, and I come from a deeply obsessed and engaged with that tradition. And thank you.
No, I that's how I feel about the work, and it's really exciting.
This one says thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. All right, let's do your auction work, and then we have to. Oh God, that's beautiful.
Okay, I'm gonna do a bunch of these real quickly. I'll go quickly.
Oh, with the glass.
Oh,
glass.
Love those too. Yeah. So much good work.
My most recent show in New York, Rewire at the Q Foundation. I'm getting to the auction piece. It's coming up.
No, it's fine.
And this one, these words, embedding words that are just kind of nondescript, and you can have your own interpretation of them. Pause. Creating a space. Wow. Also, the work is invested with the brain and rewiring. So the last works, and then I'll get to that one, were about COVID, and kind of, this was, I was invited to do an online show of spaces that we can't visit during COVID. And this was a pool that I swim at every week, 3 times a week. And this was a place that I miss in Colorado near my mom. And then these are pieces really looking at anti-racism. Are we listening? Rewire. This is a memorial to 2020. These are brand new. Placebo. No. Alive. This is a large one. These are going to a show in New York that Glenn Adamson curated, the craft writer.
Wow.
Uncertainty. This is a large one. And then
you've been busy.
I've been busy. And then this is the auction piece.
Beautiful.
Amazing. I love this piece.
If anyone's seen the show, this was the piece on the bright yellow wall in Personal Alchemy. And it's just a fantastic piece.
This was a piece on the bright yellow wall. And yet it says now, if you can see the N-O-W. And again, this has to do, a lot of the work is about breathing and kind of anxiety and how you mitigate anxiety. And so part of, with all the information coming at us in the news and in the world and all the distress, whether it be the past election, Black Lives Matter, injustice, climate change, what is the antidote to that kind of anxiety? And for me, it's the only thing is being in the present moment. Like when you're in the present moment, you can't be in that kind of panic. And so this piece is about the now. Be here now. I mean, it's kind of just a meditation on being present, and just a reminder to kind of that now is all we have. I mean, it's cliche, but it's also the now, but it's also really a profound word to me. So these are all, again, small words that have a lot of impact.
I also just really love the way that text like appears and disappears. Like the N is visually quite present, but actually it's hard to just sort of find the language immediately. And it feels very now to me in the sense that, you know, post 2016, the language of the protest has been infiltrating the realm of contemporary practice. And so many artists that I know are imagining and exploring text because it really is our language of communication that we're seeing. I really love it. I just have to say, like, there's kind of like the snake coil that runs throughout and dips down. And that's a powerful element to me too. So it's great.
Thank you.
We're super lucky.
Thank you, Terri.
Terri, so good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.